Today I'm going to be covering the current in-game meta for 76, that being Bloodied builds. Before I even get into that though, I feel like I need to give a few disclaimers. This video isn't a hit piece against Bloodied builds. I like the idea behind these builds, sure I've got some critiques on them, but I'm not looking to remove them from the game or anything crazy like that. Likewise, I want to make clear that I think people should play the builds they most enjoy, and I don't want this video to change the way anyone plays. Instead, the focus is more on what I think Bethesda should do to improve things and add more balance to the game. With that said, let's talk about the current meta build, Bloodied. If you want to get specific, I feel that Stealth Commando Bloodied is the true meta build right now, but we can talk about Bloodied builds in general for the purposes of this video. These are by far the most powerful builds in the game. Junkies and Big Guns Power Armor builds are a couple of other strong builds I can think of, but the power difference between strong builds and Bloodied builds is staggering, and I want to start off with why that's the case. First to look at are the weapons. Bloodied weapons gain a significant increase to their damage, based on how low your health is. If you're at max health, then a Bloodied weapon gives no benefit. If playing at very low health though, the weapon is suddenly dealing godly damage numbers. This is a legendary effect I actually really like, as it should force players into a glass cannon type build. Want the most damage? Got to take the most risk. It's great in theory. There's also a couple of armor effects which play with the same idea, bolstering and unyielding. The former raises resistances the lower your health, and the latter boosts your special stats. I've seen some debate over which is more powerful, but personally I feel unyielding is the better choice. With 5 pieces you will gain an extra 15 to every special except endurance. That's an extra 75 carry weight, more action points than you can use in most fights, and don't even get me started on how crazy the intelligence boost is for leveling. I'll be talking a little bit more about this later in the video, but we've still got more Bloodied build focused items to talk about first. For Mutations, there's Adrenal Reaction, reducing your max health but making it so you deal more damage at lower health, essentially doubling up your Bloodied effect. I want to quickly mention Diluted Stimpaks and Radaway, which heal a small amount of your health bar from damage or rads respectively. You don't want to sacrifice all your rads when playing Bloodied, and you never have need for full Stimpaks, so converting the base model to Diluted will double, quadruple, or even octuple the number you have. We then get onto Perk Cards, where we have Radical, increasing your strength based on how many rads you have, Nerd Rage, which boosts damage resistance, damage dealt, and AP regen, plus there's Serendipity, which gives you a 15, 30, or 45% chance to avoid taking damage when below 30% health. Now these are just the perks that are specifically designed for Bloodied builds. There are plenty of others that fit in perfectly with these builds to help make them even more powerful. I'm sure you all get the point by now. Bloodied builds have a lot going for them. But what about the downside? Well, having low health does make you more likely to die than a full health build, but it rarely feels like you're fragile with a Bloodied character. Sneak around in combat to avoid detection and you'll normally be fine. Even if you do get caught, there's a 45% chance nothing will happen. You will die at some point though, and then you suffer the consequences. Those being, dropping whatever junk you had on you, unless you're in a public event, and having to respawn. Death in 76 is rarely more than a minor annoyance. There's a chance somebody will take your junk, but most of the time you can make your way back to it and pick it back up. Now, I'm not saying that dying in the game should suddenly have huge consequences attached, but the fact that Bloodied builds have this as their only real concern shows how weak of a downside it is compared to the sheer number of powerful benefits they receive. This imbalance between positives and negatives for the build is why it's by far the strongest way to play. Want to deal the most damage? Play a Bloodied build. Want to level fast? Bloodied build. Want to pass every speech check with ease? Yep, Bloodied helps there too. My Bloodied character has a base charisma of 3, but my unyielding armor boosts that to 18, meaning I can pass any speech check without needing any stat boosting consumables. And when it comes to earning score, Bloodied builds also come in handy. The weekly repeatable of earning 10k experience is far easier when fights are over in a few seconds, and your intelligence stat makes it feel like double XP weekend every single day. By this point, I'd like to think that everyone is convinced that Bloodied builds are by far the strongest in the game. As far as I'm concerned, this isn't a case of opinion, it feels like an objective fact to me. Nothing has anywhere near the synergy that Bloodied does, and this is where the problem comes in. If this was how every build worked, I wouldn't care. As it is though, if you play anything other than Bloodied, you're on the back foot. But how to change that? Well, there's 2 ways to approach the issue, and I want to talk about both. Problem is, as soon as I mention the first way, I know some people are going to get triggered. Alright, everyone sitting down? I'll assume you replied to the screen by now. Nerf Bloodied. There, I said it. Yes, I know, the dislike button is located below the video, just next to the big red subscribe button, should be easy to find. Joking aside, let's seriously talk about a Bloodied nerf. The fear many players will have with this is with it being nerfed to death, an occurrence I've seen plenty of times in games past. If too many features get removed, reduced or altered in significant ways, then Bloodied could go from the most powerful to the least, and none of us want that. Nocturnal deserves to be at the bottom, it's trash. That's right, Nocturnal, you're trash. I don't care that you're a Daedric Prince. As a legendary effect, you're the absolute worst, and that hood is doing nothing to hide your bald spot. Alright. What was I saying? Oh yeah, nerfing Bloodied builds into oblivion. So, we don't want that to happen, but you can still weaken Bloodied builds in various ways that keep them as a top tier build, but also give room for other builds to at least challenge them. The ways that are most likely to happen would be very basic stat-based reductions. Maybe the damage increase from the Bloodied effect is reduced down a level or two. According to the wiki, Bloodied currently works like this, making you deal double damage below 20% health. They could shift everything down a level, or halve the damage boosts, and Bloodied would still be deadly. Junkies maxes out at plus 50% damage, so why shouldn't Bloodied be the same? Personally though, I'd love to see more interesting and thematic downsides to be added into the game. Having 80% of your health bar as rads basically makes you a ghoul, so maybe the Wastelanders could treat you as such. Plenty of characters in the Fallout universe aren't fond of ghouls, so maybe random encounters have less favourable options, and vendors charge more to ghoul customers. It's horrible and discriminatory behaviour from the in-game characters, but it's also really Fallout, and is an interesting drawback to give to the build without taking any current bonuses away. What I'm trying to get at here is that there are ways to nerf things without taking it to a point where the build stops being desirable to players. If done right, nerfs can vastly improve a game, and even add in interesting new challenges and role-playing elements. Now that I've suggested the ghoulified nerf idea, I can't stop thinking about a full-blown god-tier ghoul army walking the wasteland, so maybe it's time to look at ways to buff the other builds. As I see it, the biggest disparity between Bloodied and every other build in the game is the lack of synergy. Bloodied builds have primary legendary effects for weapons and armour, making gearing them up easier than most builds. They've got a dedicated mutation, their own stim packs, and a trio of the best specialised perks. Now take a second to think about how many of these things there are for Junkies builds. Chem Fiend, Hydrofix, and Munchie Resistance, I guess, are all somewhat helpful, but they're no serendipities. There's Biocom Mesh as an armour mod, which also increases the duration of chems, but I'm running out of positives now, and all we've got so far is a lengthy trip that doesn't give us the munchies. There simply aren't enough strong dedicated effects for the other builds, and there needs to be if we want the meta to diversify. So far, the only new perk cards for Fallout 76 have been the 4 bow-related ones, and this is terrible to see. If you've completed a tour as part of Bad Company, Sarge's translator here, his community is called Bad Company, and he's basically just saying if you've been subscribed for a year, as that's how long a military tour is. Sorry about any confusion there, as you were. Then you'll likely have seen some of the videos where I come up with my own perk cards that could be added to the game. 76 has a brilliant system for adding in new perk cards, and it's been criminally underused. Isn't that right?
Disrespect the law and you disrespect me.
I really need to stop with these jokes. I'm not going to go all in with what perks could be added to supplement builds in this video, but I do want to make more custom perk card videos, so let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see, and check out the previous custom perk videos if you haven't already, as they're some of my best work. Let's now go over a couple of different builds and easy ways they could be improved. First up, Lone Snipers. Right now, a solid sniper build will want an instigating rifle, but this is only as good as Bloodied weapons if your enemy hasn't taken any damage. If they've suffered a single radroach bite, then you lose the double damage. This means that instigating, although a strong effect, is often useless. For this reason, why not make instigating do triple damage to targets at full health? You won't be one-shot killing the Scorchbeast Queen as a sniper, but at least a headshot will be a guaranteed kill on any full health super mutant. Additionally, I'd love to see an increase to the damage of rifles over range. The fact my sniper dishes out substantially more damage at close range feels so wrong. change the damage drop off a rifle so they deal less damage up close, but the damage stays maxed after a certain distance, and suddenly, a sniper playstyle is being encouraged rather than punished. What about a demolition build? Someone who wants to use missile launchers and grenades is currently going to really struggle with the game. Explosive weapons need a serious buff, as right now the Fat Man, an iconic Fallout weapon, can barely deal with basic grunt enemies. Increase base damage and blast radius of his weapons significantly to make them actually feel powerful. Make crafting these types of ammo cheaper, and maybe add in a new perk card that increases XP from kills with explosive guns, not including the explosive legendary effect. There are easy ways to make other builds stronger, and it's not like they need to be the most drastic of changes. I don't personally have a problem with Bloodied being at the top of the meta, I just want the gap between it and every other build to be reduced, so people aren't punished for playing the build they want to. You can also make brand new build archetypes by buffing some of the prefix legendary modifiers. The main reason that making a Bloodied build is fairly easy comes about from the fact that you can get a very strong build with just 1-star weapons and armour. RNG in Fallout 76 can be crazy, so much so that I made a video all about the subject, and it's currently the featured video on my channel page. Go take a look at it if you want a rough idea of why getting a good 3-star item to drop is so hard. For the purposes of this video though, all you need to know is that the first star is the easiest to focus your build around, so a buff to the weaker prefix effects is needed. There's currently various Slayer effects as prefix modifiers, these being things like Ghoul Slayers, Hunters, and Zealots, each increasing damage dealt to or reducing damage dealt by a certain type of enemy. Right now, a Zealot's weapon only deals an extra 30% damage to scorched enemies, while giving no benefit when facing anything else. Instead, make that a 100% damage boost against the specific enemy type. Likewise, the damage reduction for the armour is 15%. A full set of Ghoul Slayer armour will reduce damage from ghouls by 75%. Up this to 18% apiece though, and that's a 90% damage reduction to the specific enemy type if you have a full set. This would allow players to specialise at fighting a specific type of enemy, but then make it so they struggle against others. A great balance as I see it. During a Queen fight, a Zealot's build has double damage and doesn't fear sonic blasts. During a silo run though, their gear is suddenly doing nothing for them, and this is where a Troubleshooter's build will come in handy, dealing double damage to Assaultrons, and not even flinching when Mr. Gutsies try to take them down. Slayer effects are such a good idea but are currently being wasted, as they just can't stand up to be actually strong effects. While we're at it, I'd also add Assassins to the Slayers list by doing a simple name change for the description. Instead of it reading Players, have it say Humans, and suddenly the Assassin's effect is no longer stuck in the trash with Nocturnal. Speaking of Nocturnal, she sucks! Yeah, I'm still doing this bit. Have you used her Daedric artifacts? They're some of the worst in the series. Lockpicks are everywhere, I don't need an unbreakable one. And don't even get me started on the Grey Cow. That thing has way too many drawbacks and is such an underwhelming reward for completing the Thieves Guild questline. Still, I suppose Nocturnal has been a pretty cool dude about this, and yeah, I call everyone dude, even scantily clad demigods. If the legendary effect does want to be somewhat worthwhile, then all it's going to take is making weapons and armour simply have base damage and resistance values at day, and then buff them up to double at night. I could go through every single prefix effect and talk about what changes should be made in order to make them competitive, but I think you all get it. Altering the meta of this game isn't as scary as it might first seem. There are plenty of sensible changes just waiting to take place, and I just hope the team at Bethesda actually do something, rather than letting things stay as they are. One Wasteland makes its way to the game this September, and my greatest hope is that it will contain a true balance update. I feel like the changes I've suggested would make the game far more compelling for everyone to play, but that's just how I feel about it all. If you feel differently about it, you can leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. If you agree with me or just felt my argument was well made, then please do leave a like on the video, and if you want to become part of Bad Company, then click the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all things 76, and feel free to check the description for links to Discord, Patreon, and more. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.